Hi, I'm Nick Charpentier, a solutions engineer with Great Bay Software. Today I'll be providing a brief demonstration on Great Bay Software's beacon solution in regards to real-time detection, visibility, and profiling of all your network-attached endpoints. So here we are at the beacon user interface, and what you can see from a very high level here is the dashboard is very sleek, clean, easy to use, easy to understand. So right on the top here we see the Endpoint Directory. This is the high-level view of all of the endpoints currently attached to your network and what the top profiles are that they live in. So as we scroll through this, we'll see that the numbers change on the left here. So if we highlight the Pelco Spectra camera, we see there's 481 currently active on the network. If we go down to the HID thin line badge readers, we're going to see 193. Now you'll notice that this is more tailored to the financial vertical. So we'll just kind of stick with the financial type devices for today. In the middle here, you see the total number of MAC addresses discovered, the number that are currently active on the network, and the number that have been retired. So by default, the beacon solution will retain all data historically out of the box. The retirement feature is a user definable value. So essentially, if you haven't seen activity about certain devices in any set number of days, weeks, or months, you can retire those devices. After another extended period of time, then you could actually remove them altogether. This allows you to keep a very close watch on just the number of active endpoints, as well as if there's been any devices that have been removed or decommissioned over a certain period of time. Down below you see the graphical depiction of recent events. So this will show you, over the last hour, any types of new endpoints that have attached to the network or any type of alarm that has been triggered. So if we look here on the bottom, we'll see new endpoints such as this ACS card reader was attached, or if a rogue device such as something like a Linksys consumer grade access point is attached to the network. So now let's move into the Endpoint Directory. If we come up to the top here, we can go to the Endpoint Console and go to the Endpoint Directory. Now this is a much deeper view into that pie chart that we saw on the front dashboard. This is a table format of all the attached endpoints and the profiles they live in, and off to the right it'll show you the number of endpoints that live in those profiles. Notice that there's some pluses and minuses in here. This is a dynamically updating chart that will update every single time you come into it on a per user basis. So if you've got multiple users who access and use the solution, you'll see updates on a per user basis every time you view this. So what I'm actually going to do is go ahead and showcase the real-time detection. I'm going to go ahead and add 5 new printers to the network, and we'll see not only will they show on the dashboard, but when we jump into the Endpoint Directory here, you're going to be able to see a +5 next to these Lexmark printers right down here. So right now it's showing a plus or a -1. We're going to see a +5 in just a minute here. So just to kind of recap on the profiles here, all of these are factory-built profiles that come shipped with the beacon solution out of the box. We've got hundreds of pre-built profiles that have been developed over the last 13 years of us profiling devices in the different verticals such as healthcare, financial, and industrial control space, as well as many other traditional and non-traditional or IoT type devices. If we scroll down a little further, you're going to see the GBS prefix ones. So I've built a handful of custom-built profiles for Great Bay Software specifically. And then down below we see some other traditional devices that we've already got the profiles built for. Again, these are factory profiles such as Mac OS X El Capitan, Polycom SoundPoint IP330s, and the SoundStation IP7000s. All of these tables and views that you see within the beacon user interface are exportable, so you can use for reporting. And now we're going to jump in and show you those 5 new printers as they've been detected and added to the network. So on the home page here, if we look back, we see there's some new endpoints. It says there's 6 of them, so it looks like that would include this camera and these 5 new printers, just as I mentioned. We're going to jump back into the Endpoint Directory and show you that there's a +5 next to those printers as well. So if we scroll down a little bit here, we'll see the Lexmark all-in-one color laser printer, and there's a +5. So it really truly provides that real-time visibility. Now let's jump in a little further and show what you're going to see as those devices are connected to the network and profiled. So within the Mac OS X El Capitan profile, now we're going to start seeing a little bit more granular information about each device. We see the MAC address and MAC vendor, the IP address and associated DNS record, the certainty value, which will come in another demonstration video, and then the physical layer 2 port location. So we can see this example is on core switch port 1, port 5, port 45, and so on. Now let's select one of these endpoints and jump into it a little bit closer. As we click on the endpoint summary for this MacBook, which this happens to be the MacBook I'm running this demonstration off of, now we're going to see the summary of this specific device. So we see the Mac vendor is Apple, the last IP address is right here, the DNS name is my MacBook, and we'll see when it was originally discovered on the network, which was July 28th of last year, and the last time we saw updates for it, which looks like it was 11:28 a.m. Central Time, which was about 2 minutes ago. Again, we see that physical port location, and then here's that tiered graduation of profiling. So behind the scenes, we have an artificial intelligence expert system that runs all of the metadata through a Boolean logic operating rule system and profiles the devices accordingly. So the more matches in the profile, the higher level of certainty, and that's the profile that it lives in. Now we're going to jump in and just view the profile data. Now we're going to go through this rather quickly because there's an abundance of information. So the software data, which will traditionally be gathered via SPAN or RSPAN, is going to be things such as web user agents and server banners. So you see things such as OneDrive. You can tell that I'm using Mozilla and on Mac OS X 10.11.5. And as you see, there's a ton of information in here. So you can see there's Safari and some other applications such as OneDrive and Outlook and Sublime Text. Now we'll go down to the traffic data. This is going to be gathered via your flow data. Now we're going to ingest all types of flow data to look at it from a behavioral analytics standpoint only. We're not going to be looking at things such as bandwidth or bytes transmitted or anything like that. We're going to be looking at it from the client-server communications, source and destination communications, and looking at specifically like what devices are doing on the network, who they're communicating with, and whether or not they should be doing so. So for example, if you're restricting outbound FTP communications, you're going to see that here. All of these types of data attributes that we gather, or what would be considered metadata that's communicated on the wire, we'll be able to use for profiling devices, make it actionable or alertable, and set any type of trigger. So the Beacon solution is extremely flexible, and you can really take any data attribute, use it as profiling, and use it as an alerting ability. Next we see the DHCP stack information. So this will be very valuable in leveraging the DHCP options requested for the factory-built profiles to help determine what type of device it is, what operating system it's running, and so on. We'll also see network stack information, which is very useful for TCP fingerprinting of specific devices. This has been used very successfully in many types of industrial control space or biomed type devices. Moving on, we'll see the radius accounting information. I'm not enforcing authentication on this section of the network, so we don't show anything here, but we'll show another endpoint with the radius accounting data in another video. The Active Directory data is then pulled in after we've checked to see if that device is a member of Active Directory. When a device first comes onto the network and we see the DHCP request, we're going to grab the host name and do a targeted lookup on Active Directory to see if that device is in fact a member. Additionally, we're going to query your Active Directory server and request a full copy of all the members at a specified interval. This could be very useful for things such as, if you're gathering all this information, you can augment your other third-party systems, such as if you're using ServiceNow or some other type of a CMDB. Beacon has bidirectional APIs for data ingestion as well as data sharing with those third-party systems, and that's what that user data field is down below. So we have a JSON RPC open API that will allow Beacon to ingest data from other systems, leverage that information for profiling, as well as just kind of making a single source of truth for what that endpoint is and what it is essentially connected to. Additionally, we have a search API that other solutions can search us. So again, anything we've learned about an endpoint can be shared out to your other systems. So this is an example of an asset tagging system. For example, if you have a barcode on the bottom of your laptop, you scan it, it's going to show the asset tag, who owns it, what their title is, and what department it's registered to. So we've also used this in the past for things such as back-end call management systems to show the extension of the phone, if you've got a voice over IP phone, and additional things such as like ServiceNow integrations or MDM integrations. And essentially this is a limitless flexibility and a completely open field to customize in any way that you would choose. So really that provides the high-level overview of the visibility side of things, real-time detection, and profiling of devices. Now we're going to jump in a little bit further into what additional types of views we can show you. So we're going to go back to the Endpoint console here and go to the Endpoints by Network Infrastructure Device. This will allow you to search by geographic region, so I'm going to jump into the Minnesota lab here, and you can see the different infrastructure devices I have here. So I've got a couple of switches, a wireless LAN controller, and we're going to jump into one of these layer 3 switches first. So I'm going to jump into this one named Aristotle, and here you can see all of the devices and what port they're connected to, what they're profiled as. You can see these are some of my demonstration boxes, and then you can click on the MAC address and jump into that specific endpoint. Within the Beacon user interface, you can also control the ports, so you can turn them on or off, which is essentially using SNMP to administratively enable or disable those ports. Now let's jump back and jump into that Cisco wireless controller. So you'll note here the view is slightly different. You're going to see the access point, the radio, so this will essentially say which specific radio it's communicating on, if it's the 2.4 or the 5 gigahertz band, the profile of the device that's connected. Again, MAC address, MAC vendor, and IP address, but the most important part is that you can actually see the SSID it's associated with. So on this section, I've only got the one SSID, but if you've got maybe 2, 3, 4 different SSIDs, you'll be able to see if corporate devices are trying to connect to the guest network, or vice versa, or if there's a test lab that you've got a test SSID and certain devices are trying to connect to that where they shouldn't be. When it comes to the enforcement standpoint, you can also layer in different levels of enforcement so that you can restrict access to specific SSIDs. Lastly, we're going to show you the network topology map. So the network topology map, again, is a 2D rendering of your entire network. So this is going to draw out the map, and it's going to show you all of your infrastructure devices, how they're connected, if they're running at a layer 2, layer 3, the management IP, and then the location information if it's populated. So Galileo isn't showing much for location, nor is Aristotle, but if we look at this one here, the Cisco wireless controller, we do have that populated with the MN lab. You can drill into any of those devices and see what is connected to them, similar to the view we saw before, just in a graphical sense. So as we jump into Aristotle, now you can scroll in and see devices that are connected, such as there's an ASUS router, the other upstream infrastructure devices, the Cisco controller, a Polycom sound point, and if you want to move things around and look at it a little bit cleaner, you can drag and drop as well. So that rounds out the visibility, profiling, and real-time detection. Thank you for watching this video, and have a great rest of the day.